right, welcome to Forever Exile, the Path of Exile podcast. I am Justin, aka Tags.
And I'm Tyler, Wrecker of Days.
This is episode 83, and today we are joined by the one and only ShakCentral. Thanks for joining us, man.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
It's going to be fun. We have a lot to talk about, but first, a real quick shout out to our Patreons. Thank you guys for supporting the podcast. If you're curious what our Patreon is, you can find it down below. Biggest thing is you get access to After Dark, which is our podcast after the podcast where we just talk more stuff and things about Path of Exile and life.
Yeah, you should be one of those guys, like at the
when
end
you
of
apply for a credit card.
At the end of the commercial. Yeah.
It was so smooth.
Yeah,
I don't think I messed up on too many words, so
I kept waiting for you to trip up, and you just never do.
Nope, I don't. And if I did, I'd edit it out and no one would hear it anyway. Anyway, man, thanks so much for taking some time to join us.
Very much, yeah.
Thank you.
It's late for you, a little bit late?
This is like I'm just getting ramped up now.
Yeah. You Eastern people. What is it? It's 11:30 for you?
Justin can't add 3 hours to his clock.
Sometimes it's 3, sometimes it's 4.
Yeah. No, it's 10:30, so this is when the strong New York coffee kicks in.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
All right, so first question, I just need to know where's the name come from? ShakCentral.
Okay, so the first part is part of my last name, which fits me perfectly. Playing basketball growing up, everybody just called me Shak because I was a center anyway. And then I spent way too long coming up with like a way to integrate that into a name. I came up with a few other ideas when I first wanted to start streaming, and all of them were like taken on a different social media. And I spent a solid week kind of sorting out different names and making sure that they were available literally everywhere.
That's hard, hey? That's a hard
It
process.
was really difficult, like surprisingly difficult. So
growing up, and if you played like games online or whatever, would you have used just Shak?
So for a long time, I went with, I tried to do Shaker. So for a long time, like my PlayStation profile, I think it's like SHAKKER, and everyone would say Shaker, and I got I just couldn't handle it anymore. So.
Okay, so you mentioned basketball. I was gonna ask you about this later, but I'm kind of curious. First up, oh man, whatever's happening to your Discord, my favorite thing ever. I'm keeping that part in. So you played center in high school?
So yeah, it was that weird thing where like I was the tallest kid on the team, but I by far put in the most. I'm a very obsessive person. That kind of leads into the whole PoE thing. So I would spend so much time in the gym that I would just alternate between. I was pretty much the center on defense, like the anchor in the middle of our zone, and then I'd flip around and play point guard on offense. So that was pretty much the thing.
How tall?
Like 6'2". I'm 6'2". I am the shortest male in my family, which is very depressing now.
Well, it's still 6'2". It's fine.
Yeah, exactly.
It's better than Ty's 5'6".
5'10" and a half. Thank you very much. Jerks. So how long did you play basketball?
A very long time. So, like I started really young because my grandpa actually ran sports leagues in our area. My grandpa's like the sports king. He has leagues for like all different sports. He started for little kids here. So I started playing when I was really young. Went and played through high school. Went to college to try to play. And the second practice of my college career, without getting too much into the details, I basically snapped my shoulder. Had to get the shoulder rebuilt, and after that went and played. I played a little bit in community college, but that was kind of that was really disappointing. Like
that was your deal breaker.
Playing at a pretty high level, and then just instantly it was like I just shredded it. I mean, tore like everything. So it is what it is. But it led to me playing a lot more video games. So I guess it's worked out.
What were you in college for?
So I started out in like physical education, and really quickly realized I really liked teaching and communication, which surprise, surprise, where I am now. So I ended up doing like a combination of like history and a little bit of focus in like public speaking, things like that. So
your injury, was it just like a chance thing, or was it
so like I was running on a fast break, and a guy passed to me, and his pass was behind me, and I tried to basically like grab it behind me and kind of just spin as I caught it. And as I reached out to grab it, a guy like the defender was running at me to try to pick off the pass, and he caught my arm going full speed that way. And it just ripped like the labor, like when someone gives you like a shoulder rub, that muscle like ripped in half. So it was really bad.
Any like long term from that now? Can you only move it so much? Or
I have limited range of motion a little bit, but I'm like it was nice in the sense that I'm a lefty, so it doesn't affect my shot. It affects a little bit of like layups and stuff like that on the right side, but it is what it is.
What else do you like to do? I mean, basketball, dream about basketball, cry about basketball. What else?
That's a lot of it, honestly. I'm like I have very few hobbies because I get really, really into whatever I'm into. So the biggest two are like basketball and PoE, but on the whole, it's like, it's family time. I try to spend as much time with my kids as I can, and we do a lot of we're a big gaming family in general. We play a lot of board games. We do a lot of outside. We just built a basketball hoop outside. So
built,
get the
not
kids
bought.
Started so bought from Dick's Sporting Goods. Bought, but like a big one. Like we had one that kind of, it was made for kids, and it really got beat up last year. So this year we're getting a good one that's going to last. Like, the glass backboard, that whole thing. So that took days to set up. I like it. It's going to last a long time. It's better than anything I had as a kid.
How many kids you have?
So we have, I love saying this because it kind of cracks people up. Currently we have 5, but because we do foster care.
Nice.
So we have 4 of our own, and then we've had as many as two others, and right now we have 1 girl. So 5 at the moment.
Full house.
Yeah.
Good for you. And they all like basketball, right? They have to.
Yeah, for the most part, yeah. Like our kids, it's funny how much, even at a young age, I can see the 5 of them having different skills. Like my son is just a dribbling wit. I've never seen he's 5 years old. He's going behind his back. He's going between his legs. My daughter's a solid shot. So yeah, they're all kind of at different levels, but we'll see. I got my starting 5 now. That's all I need.
Who do they pretend to be? Shak?
So they really like Trae Young. They like watching shots go in from a very far distance. So they like Steph Curry. They like Trae Young. I'm trying to get them. I'm creepily obsessed with Luka Doncic. So I love him so much, and I'm trying to get them to watch his highlights and appreciate him. But I think they're about 10 years away from probably appreciating what Luka does. But
And so it's PoE that takes all your spare time after basketball, hey? And family time, it's just PoE.
Yeah, it's yeah. That's pretty much it. It's been a slow build to the point where I'm just, anytime I want to play another game, I'm like, yeah, but I could play Path of Exile. Like I could get stuff done.
Totally. Yeah. So before we get into PoE, what's a typical day like for you?
Sure.
Massive family, PoE, basketball in the brain. What do you do?
So like I said, because I'm a late night person, my day starts off pretty much late in every aspect. I wake up later than I should. I get to work later than I should. But I've kind of worked it out. The guy that I work mainly with is a military veteran who's up very early. So we've kind of come up with a system so we can cover like a little bit. He's in a little bit before the normal start. I'm in a little bit after, and then I stay a little bit afterwards. So it kind of works out work-wise. But I have a 9 to 5, theoretically. We just had like a big crisis last week, so we've all worked like 80 hours in the last week. But
dang,
typically a solid 9 to 5. And then I have to be very structured because I'm trying to get specific things done, and I take on more than I should. I've kind of reached the point where I have to be super, super structured. So my days, some people might think it's boring, but I do the same thing almost every day because that's how I get my stuff done. So like I'm fortunate enough that we have like 2 of our buildings, our company are like 3 blocks apart, and I live directly in the middle of those. So my commute is like 30 seconds. So that makes it really, really nice. I go home on lunch. I try to get either PoE stuff done or work stuff done. And then after work, I go to the gym right away, get back, and we do family stuff till bedtime pretty much.
Wow.
Yeah.
Nice. Feel free not to answer, but what was life like for you before PoE and this current routine?
So I've been playing since like open beta, and obviously not doing like no content creation, anything like that. But before I got into like PoE content, I was into Magic the Gathering pretty heavily. I was like a tournament player there. I was going up and down the East Coast, going to tournaments there. And then once I reached the point where I was like, I don't want to I don't want to take entire weekends and not see my kids, all that stuff. I was like, oh, well, Hearthstone is another great like tournament game, very competitive game. So that was like the first main thing that I streamed was Hearthstone because I could just do it. I could sit right here, stream it, play in tournaments, try to get to legend, all that. So if it's not clear already, I have a tough time doing anything that's not either like content oriented or like competitive. That's like always my thing. It's my whole family's thing. It's very high drive to just get stuff done. Like I don't really like playing a game if I'm not making content for it. I get really bored easily of like regular action games and stuff because I'm like I want to put stuff out. So it's always been content driven.
Anyway, let's get into Path of Exile then. So you're playing Magic the Gathering. What's the switch? How do you get into PoE?
So a lot of it was that travel time, like realizing that I had played PoE like on and off since open beta. It was really, really cool. And then when you started getting into like the late like 2 dot whatever patches, the early like 3 dot whatever patches, and like Essence League and Breach and all that, I started to be like, well, this is like I'm putting more time into this because it's really enjoyable. I started, all the other games started to like fade away. I was like, I wasn't that interested in regular RPGs like Skyrim, stuff like that anymore. And when I reached the point with Magic where it was like, if I want to do anything with this, I have to be like literally all over the country. It lost a lot of its appeal. I had one tournament in particular where I was like, it was basically finishing the top, I think 4 of this tournament, and you're on the Pro Tour. And I played against a professional player whose articles I read like weekly, and I got some of the like borderline statistically impossible bad luck. And after that, I was just like, I'm done. Like the whole family and I had gone to Pittsburgh for the weekend. And then the best day of the weekend on Saturday when the weather was beautiful and all that, I was just in a card shop playing games. And then I got absolutely nothing out of it because I just got hosed on some RNG, and I was like, no, I'm done.
Did you get into PoE with anyone else? Like, did you start playing it just on your own, or were there other people you knew playing it?
Yeah, we had a tight group of like, it's funny. I started playing with my cousin, and then my cousin had a group of friends of his from high school. So my cousin's like 3-4 years older than me, and he lived about an hour and a half, 2 hours away. He had his group of friends from high school that I had only ever talked to through, I mean, at the time, I think it was TeamSpeak we were using. There was another one too, I can't remember the name, but just long before Discord. And we would play like, yeah, something like that, yeah. We would play like League of Legends together. We played all kinds of games like that together, like MOBAs and just any team game. And then for a while we played party play in PoE, which, has had like its ups and downs in terms of how much fun it is. But that was back when, like, I remember when Kriparian was trying to become like the first level 100 guy, and that really, really famous clip of him like dying to the Detonate Dead when he was at like level 98 and stuff. And that was like, I remember sending that clip around to all of us and being like, we could be this group. Like, we got to play, like it's good. They look like they were having so much fun. And so we all played, and the majority of them have like fallen off over the years for various reasons. But I still regularly play with my actual cousin. He's usually, if I'm playing in Trade League, we'll league start together usually. This league was a little bit different. We were so prepared, and then neither of us could get in. But yeah, we still play a lot together. Actually, I think he's pretty much the two of us basically are our own guild because none of the other guild members play anymore.
And so what's the tie-in? You said you really like competitive gaming, right? That was your thing. And so what's the tie-in to PoE? Where do you find your competitiveness in this?
That's a really good question. So I've been thinking about this because of part of the discussion I had with another person earlier this week. And I realized that the competitive side has transitioned into like, I don't know how to like a teaching kind of role. Teaching sounds weird. Like I don't know more about PoE than a lot of other people, but because the guide and all that have been focused so much toward new players, I've discovered that like that is something I have a passion for it that I did not know that I had until I started getting comments in the guide of new people being like, hey, I've never made it out of the campaign, and now I'm like, I fought Shaper for the first time, and I didn't beat him, but I fought him, and I was like, that's amazing. And then dozens of those comments happened. Like the first league that the guide was up, it was Legion League, because I made it at the end of Synthesis, because I was just done with Synthesis, and I made it so going into Legion League, everybody's like, oh yeah, I went in, I did like a 5-way, and I didn't get that many kills, but I unlocked my map device, and so I started getting comments like that of people who were taking the build and getting further than they ever had before. And just something clicked, and I was like, "Oh yeah, this is what I want to do." Like that's still the coolest thing. Like I still get like, I don't know, kind of almost like shivers when someone will come into like the stream and be like, "Hey, I just fought the Maven, and I've never like made it past Katava before," and it's just like that's the best. So it's transitioned into like a helping community role.
Awesome, good for you. Now, how long you been playing PoE before you started writing your guide?
I played like there were a lot of times when I would take like maybe 3-6 month breaks. I think there was one time when I didn't play for like a year and a half, and then I came back to it, and I was like, oh, I had that moment. I think it was Breach League where I had not played in like a year and a half. I came back, essences were in the game, and then Breach League was insane. And I had a moment where I was like, I'm going to be playing this game as long as it's out. Like this, it's just unless they like completely just destroy what they have now, like I'm not gonna stop playing. And so it was Breach League when I got really, really back into it. And then I was super all in on Delve League. Those were the two big ones for me. It was Breach and Delve got me to be like, this is the best game that's ever been made.
Huh, that's pretty cool. But your account creation sounds like it was quite a while ago.
Yeah, playing kind of off and on since open beta. Still, yeah, there's like all these fun memories you have like over the years of, and you look back and you're like, oh, that build was terrible, or like that content is so different now. But it's always been just the options are just the sheer amount of options. That's why a lot of people don't play, and I get that a lot. And that has literally been my main focus for like the last year of my life, is like, how do you get people past that hurdle? But the sheer amount of options are just blow my mind all the time.
And so what was the league you started writing your guide? Do you remember the first league?
Yeah, I remember why too. I remember it because Synthesis League was the league that almost made me change all of that and be like, maybe this game is going in a direction I don't like. So Synthesis came out, and we had family stuff going on at the time, so I wasn't able to play as much like from the beginning. And trying to get into Synthesis League after it's been out for a while was just it's not possible. Like, it's just, even for a player who had played a long time, it was the most complicated league, and I didn't really like this. That's the one league mechanic that I can look back on and be like, I didn't like that at all. And so the timing was just weird. And so I decided I wanted to start writing just something. I actually started the Vortex guide started as like a character journal, because I was like, I had heard people doing this SSF thing where there was a guy that had been for years documenting his character, and no one even believed him, because he was like, I made all this gear myself. I found all this gear myself. He was the first like documented SSF player. And I was reading his stuff, and I was like, that would be so cool. Like, I loved reading. I ate it up. And so I was like, I'm going to do that. And I was looking for different builds. I started writing out like just character progression. It was like, okay, I was using this skill until I got through Act 3. And at that time, there were 3 different difficulties. Was there yet? I don't remember where they were at that point. But I started doing basically just writing out what I had done with the character. And then the build came together. Like, it just clicked. And all of a sudden, I was just crushing everything. And I was like, well, this is like a legit, like, this is an actual build. And I looked up, there were a couple people that had thrown together like little guides for it. And there was nothing big on the forums or anywhere that I could find. And I was like, all right, I basically just had my guide up side by side with Inky's guide. And I was like, how do I make this as close to the level of Inky's guide as I possibly can? And so I spent the last month and a half of Synthesis League doing 0 league mechanic stuff and just writing a guide and building out a character.
It takes
Were you
some time.
streaming at that point?
Nope. So I was on a hiatus. I had streamed Hearthstone for a while, and then when I stopped getting into Hearthstone like competitively, I basically was like, I don't know if I'm going to stream anymore. And so I went a while without streaming, and then once the guide was posted, it took off like stupidly fast. I thought something was wrong. I thought like I don't know. It was very bizarre how fast it took off, which is cool. And I was like, maybe I should like think about, doing something live just so I can interact with people. And that was the first time I started thinking about getting back into it and actually streaming Path of Exile.
So the guide actually kind of pushed you back into streaming then?
Yeah.
Like just the reaction from people
then,
or what?
There were people that were like, hey, if you ever like, if you ever play this on stream, I'd like to see it. There's like little things like that. And after a while I was like, it's not like I'm not going to be playing the game anyway. And I have the camera and the mic and all that from when I was playing Hearthstone. So why not just pop it on a couple times a week? And at first it was like no schedule, no consistency, no nothing. And at the time I had actually gotten, back in 2018, I was playing basketball, and you'll find this out if you get to know me a little bit. I'm very injury prone in basketball. So I was playing in 2018 and tried to block somebody, came down, and I broke my foot in 3 places. So I went a solid like year and a half, 2 years where I could not run or even like jog. I couldn't put any weight on the foot almost at all. So coming out of that time was actually right about like October 2019. That was right about when my foot was healing up, and I had put on a lot of weight, and I was not healthy. So I remember times when I would stream and I would be like an hour in and I'd just be falling asleep, like live on camera. You can just, if there's like videos of my old streams, you just literally watch me just like basically looking through like closed eye slits and just trying to fake being awake, just healthy. I wasn't healthy at all. And so that the guide coming out and having people ask me to stream again kind of pushed me into like also getting back in the gym and getting healthy again, which is good.
All right, so I have to ask, because I knew you for a while as just the Vortex guy. You had the Vortex guide, and you stream Vortex. What? I'm so curious. Why Vortex? What is it about Vortex that just made you go, "Yep, that's the one"? And then you've really, really hung on to it. I mean, it works for you, which is awesome. But what is it about Vortex? Why Vortex?
I don't know if I have a good answer for that. I think part of it is personality. Like, I think like I mentioned before, I'm a very, like, when I find something that I like, I don't really let it go. Like, I mean, I play one sport, I play one instrument, I play one game. Like, when I get into something, I'm into it. So I was playing it, and that was like the thing. I kind of made it myself. I think at the time Gazzy had either just put out or just updated a guide for it as well. And so I was looking at his ideas, and I was like, I think maybe I can make tweak it, make it work a little better for me. And when I realized that it was basically like a melee play style, but one where I could drop my damage down and like move around, I started learning the boss fights, because I remember getting 2 boss fights before and just getting crushed because I didn't know what I was doing. And so I realized I could like go at the boss, drop all my damage on top of him, and then learn the mechanics of it. And my knowledge of the game itself like went up immensely. And so I realized it was a really great league starter. I realized I learned how to make energy shield gear. And so at the time, the CI I remember a time when to transition to Chaos Inoculation, you'd probably be looking at spending like 75 or 80 regret orbs, because it was just something you do all at once and you had to have all your gear prepped. So once I got the hang of swapping over to CI, I was like, okay, I know how to do this. I know how to league start with it. I know how to ramp it up and kill bosses with it. And then when I started seeing people that were like, yeah, I'm using this and killing bosses too, I was like, okay, so this can be like a, start to finish, like league long build. And it hasn't gotten boring to me yet, because the playstyle is very active. There's a lot more buttons that you press than most builds press, which sometimes is good, sometimes is bad. Sometimes I'll swap in like triggered stuff just so I don't have to press as many buttons. But I like the fact that it's very active, and it teaches you the game really, really well. So I still haven't gotten bored of it yet.
How awesome was it for your guide when Vortex went instant?
It was real nice. It was real nice. It? At the same time, I will say, over the last couple of months, as the guide has like gone to kind of that next level where it's just like everywhere now, what's been really funny to watch is now it's coming back to bite me, because I play Vortex on right click, and I give this example all the time on the stream, but I did not know until it got more popular, like the stream part of it. I did not know how many people play it on left click, because it's instant. You can basically do it just like you would Steel Skin. Yep. And it is shocking to me how many people play it on left mouse button, to the point where it's now a meme. Like I have channel point rewards that force me to play it on left mouse button for a while. I had a whole emote. Like, I've paid money to have an emote created that's just a picture of a mouse with a red cross through the left mouse button. Like, it's become like its own life of its own type of meme. So I act like I hate it a lot more than I really do, just because it plays up really well. But yeah, at some point I might ask them to add a slight cast time to it, just to make my life a little bit easier.
It's nice to choose when you're placing it, though. That's for sure.
That's exactly.
So we've been talking lots about your guide, but we didn't even give you an opportunity to talk about. Why don't you tell us, people that aren't familiar with what your guide is, why don't you tell them what your guide actually is, what you love about it?
Yeah. So to put Vortex like very quickly and very succinctly, it uses cold damage over time. It uses 2 damaging skills. Both of them basically do the same thing. You hit enemies with like a hit of cold damage over time, and then it leaves behind a circle on the ground that deals like continuous cold damage over time. It doesn't hit continuously, but it deals damage over time. And what makes it so good for new players and for league starting and all that is the damage part of it is not reliant really on any uniques. So there's no like interactions that you have to have for it to work. There's a variant of the build that requires you to have a certain body armor, but there's no like, the build ceases to work if you don't have this certain ring that interacts a certain way with a belt or anything. So it just it does its thing. It does its damage because it leaves pools behind. It's really, really good for learning game mechanics, because you can deal damage while you're actively looking at everything else on the screen and sort of realizing, what does this enemy's attack pattern look like? What does this boss's move look like? So it's really good for new players. It's very, very easy to build. It has a very smooth progression. And actually, I just put out put out a new Path of Building update today that makes it so the transition from life to chaos inoculation, as long as you save up your respec points in the campaign, I don't believe you have to spend a single regret orb anymore to go CI. So it's just designed to be as new player friendly as possible. But we're also now, I'm coming to the other end of it, where now I'm satisfied with how easy it is to get into the build. And now we're ramping up the endgame part of it. So it's just getting like the full endgame version is just stupidly strong. So it can do everything. That's what I really love. It just, there's basically nothing that it can't do, and does really well.
So endgame's Vortex, CI, busy buttons, and your Occultist, I assume?
Yep, Occultist, yep. And then at some point, if you're in a trade league, you'll typically transition from CI to a low life build with Shav's wrappings.
Especially with the new setups they have, eh? All the new stuff they added.
It's silly. Yeah, it's like really, really good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So is Vortex the only guide that you write?
Right. It's the only updated guide. I back in Legion League, so right after I made the Vortex guide, I was like, oh, I got to make more guides, right? Like you have to make more guides. And so I made a tornado shot guide. Because, like, I remember Grimro was one of the first, like, content creators I would seriously watch, like, constantly. And he was just famous. He would literally always play tornado shot. Whatever his topic of his video was, it was tornado shot. And there was no guide for it. So I made the guide, and it worked really, really well. And then within a month, the next league started, and they nerfed it, like, dead nerfed it. And it was and I have not touched it in, like, 2.5 years.
Is that like a Bitter Pants thing?
It's like the intro to the guide, like my forward has like the link to the guide, and I'll get multiple requests a league. I'll get like DMs on the official website or on Discord and stuff, and people being like, "Hey, can you update that guide?" And I'm like, "I don't think you understand. There's no updating it. Like it's a rewrite from scratch."
Yeah.
Outside of when you're playing, obviously Path takes up most of your time, but are there any games you kind of like dabble in, maybe even off stream or?
Yeah. So there's typically like a rotation of one or two that's like a combination of things that I'll do with my kids or that group of friends that we still, we're still pretty tight. We talk like every day. I can hear my phone vibrating every once in a while, and it's them in a Google Hangouts chat. So we'll play like I like Rocket League a lot. That's what really satisfies my remaining like competitive itch is I really, really like Rocket League. So I'll play that, and the kids really like watching that, and like we'll play Fall Guys and other like PlayStation console games. I think the only game that I have on my phone right now it's still, technically it's Hearthstone, but I play Battlegrounds because that game mode is just stupid fun. And we're just a big board game family. Like we have 3 bookshelves in our living room.
Did you see Justin's face? You're talking to the right people, so you just keep this part going.
When I looked behind, what I can see behind you right now, I'm just imagining that filled with board games and not what appears to be
my other closet
supplements. Yeah. We've got hundreds of board games, right? To the point where like we're replacing books on the bookshelves now with more board games and just tossing out books to add games in. So we have people over to our house pretty regularly, which has been on hold for a little bit. But we're a huge board game fan. Not just us, but like my extended family. I have a huge, loud, crazy, boisterous family, and we're all just like, when we get together for Christmas, it's like we don't even need to open presents. We'll just play board games for like 24 hours straight. It's just what we do.
What are the go-to board games?
Yeah.
So we've reached the point where I have to ask people, what other games do you like? Because we have so many like genres. Like some people, you start them out with the classic like Settlers of Catan, or you'll start with like a Carcassonne type of game. We started really playing a lot more Cosmic Encounter. That's like super fun. And we've gotten some of the big like overwhelming table size. Like, I don't know if you ever heard of Scythe. Mm-hmm. Scythe is ludicrous. We really like games like that. So we'll play Scythe, and then it's kind of a mix of like D&D, but a Gloomhaven is
we've played Gloomhaven,
mind-blowingly good. For my 30th birthday party, my wife was like, we want to plan something to go do. What do you want to do? And I was like, I want to get the group of guys together because they all live like 2 hours away. I was like, I want to go there and I want to play board games for 2 days in a row. And she was like, oh yeah, that's kind of funny. And I was like, no, I don't think you understand. I want to play board games for 2 days in a row. So we got up there, we played Gloomhaven for like 14 hours straight, and it was the best day of my life.
Yep.
That's awesome.
I
Good
love
for
Gloomhaven.
you.
Yeah, it's really fun.
We are like the type that look at, is it at least an hour or two of the time to play, and can you play with at least 5 or more people?
Mhm.
Those are like our set things when
Yep.
we're looking for board games.
We're really good with our group of getting together and never finishing a game. And it's awesome. We wish we could, but it's never going to happen.
I don't know if you're familiar with Tabletop Simulator on Steam, but that's where we started playing. Like, I have a Gloomhaven game going on right now because that's amazing. The game we got going on right now is like a friend down in Long Island, my brother across town from me, and like we can just get anybody in at any time, and that's been a literal game changer. So I like that one.
I heard you talking about on one of your broadcasts, I don't know, 3 months ago, 2 months ago. You're into Last Epoch for a bit. You're talking about maybe even guide writing for that too. Is that something that still interests you, or was that just a moment of time because of the state of the game of PoE at the time? Or
I would say a bit of both. There's something that's like inherently really appealing about getting in the ground floor of something. If you're going to put out content for it, like being one of the original content people is like an insanely appealing idea. So
yeah,
from that perspective, I was like, oh yeah, that's a thing I could see myself doing, like becoming the guide per, it's if you put out a guide for that, like Inky's guide was put out in 2014. Like that's the type of guide you can have in this game now because it's about to launch. So that being said, the main reason I even moved over there was because I literally couldn't play in Ritual League. The performance was so bad. And I know this has been like a thing that I keep hearing repeatedly, the last couple of podcasts, because I do listen every week, spoiler alert.
but Shak.
But like every time you guys mention ritual performance, I'm just sitting there like, yep, because I could not play I was actually playing this is the worst league ever to try it in. I decided in 3.13 I was going to play hardcore SSF for the first time, the whole league. There's a guy.
Punishing.
Yeah. So I really like hardcore modes in games, like a lot. And
okay, you're crazy. Thanks for visiting.
There's another YouTuber and streamer named Lighty, and there's like 2 Lighties in the PoE community, but there's one that's in the middle of this ongoing challenge he's been doing where he's trying to collect every unique in SSF. He wants every one of them, and some of them are like borderline impossible to get. He's been doing it for about a year and a half now, and he still has like I think 10 outside of this league. He still has like 10 he hasn't gotten in a year and a half. So being it's probably not a healthy way to like assess my own ability, but I was like, oh, well, the next step of that is logically to do it in hardcore SSF, right? So I was like, obviously. I'm going to do this. So I made a video about it. I was like, all right, so starting in Ritual, we're going to be doing hardcore SSF. I'm going to be focusing everything on collecting every unique. I want every unique. And then so the thumbnail for the last video that I ever put out in that playlist is a thumbnail of my FPS. It's just a picture of my FPS graph just looking like an EKG. So it just was it was absolutely unplayable. And that was when I was like, okay, maybe this is not fixable, and maybe Last Epoch is the way to go. But thankfully my performance, I empathize when I've been hearing you guys talking about performance, because my performance in 3.14, it's like a completely different game. I had no issues at all.
What now? You've talked about like latching on. You latch on to sports, you latch on to family, you latch on to Vortex and CI. But I mean, PoE is like a ginormous game with, as you mentioned, endless options. What are the types of builds and ideas you like always dream about while you're playing your guide, but never get to because, of course, you're a guide writer and got to keep it up? What are the kind of some of the other ideas you always think about, but you never get to?
This is where I get really jealous of other people, because this is actually Magic the Gathering is a perfect example of this. So if I can like take a sidetrack. So when I would play Magic, I'm a really good Magic player. I was really close to I'm really, really good. Like
that's awesome.
I'm just gonna dumb it down a bit, but no one's better.
But like
than
the thing with being the reason that I was good in like tournaments is what I was good at was taking existing decks that were good and tweaking them a little bit, like making 1 or 2 card changes that made a big difference in whatever, based on my local players, all that type of stuff. I'm really bad at Magic when I have to come up with a deck from scratch. I'm really, really bad at that. I'm much more of like a tuner than a theory crafter. So I am really jealous of people. Like my cousin's a perfect example. he has made so many stinking unbelievable builds, but he refuses to play Vortex. Like he comes up with all his own ideas, and they're incredible. So he'll see an interaction, he'll read the patch notes, and he'll be like, "Do you see this thing in the patch notes?" And we're talking about two completely different things. He'll talk about a line in it, and even after I read the line in the patch notes, I'm like, "Okay, I don't get it." And he's like, "Well, doesn't this interact with this unique like this? And now, I can double my damage." And I'm like, I don't know, dude. Like, I don't know how this works. So I'm always really jealous of people that come up. Like, whenever I see a new build that just takes over the meta, I'm like, oh, I would never have done that. Like, I never would have found that. So that's what made Vortex kind of unique, was there were a few people playing it in like a minimal guide, and I just took it from there and ran with it. But coming up with new builds and stuff is always the thing where I'm like, I wish I had that skill, but I don't. And it is what it is. I'm happy for what I am good at, but that's my big like point of jealousy with other people. I can't come up with minion champion builds like some people.
Oh, no, man.
Sometimes they just don't work though either.
I was trying to set you up as much as I could.
Hey, I'm just a quick question. Your cousin, when you play with him, is he he or she total douchebag that you really wish was someone completely different? Like just
gosh.
anyone?
It is unbelievable. I tell him that every day of my life. Not even in
Is your
PoE.
cousin Justin?
I wake up in the morning and I go into the Hangouts chat we have, and I say, "I wish you were someone else and you were nice to me." And then and I say, "Have a good day."
Oh man,
Every morning.
it's like this mirror of alternate realities, but in the same world. That's crazy.
Yep.
So
Tears, Ty. Tears.
just get out of here. Edit yourself out. Get out of here. Nobody's talking to you. So personal goals. Play roughly the same build every league. What do your personal goals revolve around? Are they like your personal achievements? Or are you trying to accomplish something for your guide? If they're personal, like what are you striving for?
That's a great question. It's like weird because that's not. I don't have time. I don't have time to come up with personal goals for each league, and the reason is once patch notes day hits, it's like I feel like I'm in a MacGruber skit from SNL. Like I feel like I have 10 seconds to put out a year's worth of content. So
Yeah.
it's weird because I never think about it at the beginning of each league. And that's honestly, there are a lot of other builds that I would probably, if I didn't have so much stuff to do leading up to launch, I would probably play different league starters each league. But Vortex is great because I don't have to think about it at all. Like I could not play it for 6 months and league start with it and not have to look at a passive tree because it's just memorized. So that's part of the reason that I start with it. Even though I've played it a bunch, there are other things that would be really fun to do. But like the second, right, I was prepping stuff in Discord until the queue started moving for the league launch this league because there was so much to do. So
One of the few people thankful for the queue.
Exactly. I was like, I got in the queue and I was like, I don't know, 17, 18,000. And I was like, oh, I might be able to get everything done now. This is great. Yeah, 4 billion queue later, I was still working on it. But the thing, like personally for my goals overall is like they stay the same league to league. And that's become the overall goal that I have is to make Path of Exile as accessible as I possibly can. That's like, that's the thing that I was kind of talking about that before. Like that's become my passion thing is like if someone tries the game and leaves because there's too many options or they're just overwhelmed or they never get any actual good help, that's like a thing where I'm just like, oh, I failed. Like when I go on like the build subreddit, I don't really visit the main subreddit, but when I go on the builds subreddit and I see players that are just like, I tried this and it didn't work and I'm really frustrated, I'm just like, that's like, give me a hug. I gotta help. Like so my goal is always like to get new players in because once you're in, there's so much to do. Like we have a speedrunning community that's massive and growing. I mean, Brittle Knee's on here all the time. Like, you know, all about that. We've got all these people that put out these incredible private league events. Like Zizarin does his Gauntlet. Badger does his private league, which is like the most fun I've ever had in a game in my life. You've got like theory crafters. You got like item flip. You got people that literally can just play economy simulator all day. So like it's almost impossible if you get far enough in that you won't find something to do. But the barrier is just getting in. And that's where I'm like, that's what my passion's for. So that's always my personal goal is just to see more people getting in and getting into the game.
More content oriented than content. Wait, what did I say? Did I say more content than content?
That was beautifully
Is that what I said?
redundant.
Yeah. Okay, good.
Okay, so let's take Ritual out. Let's assume performance is good and league's going fine. Do you find you struggle with burnout as you get further into the league? Like, where does that fall for you?
This is like a downside and an upside of being as focused on things as I get, is I just don't, like, I have trouble identifying with the word burnout. Like, I just don't. It's just not a thing that's like been a problem. Like, I don't really burn out. If anything, I'm like, when people would come in, I think I had this discussion a couple streams ago where someone came in and they were like, man, I've done everything on Vortex and I kind of want to just like start another build, but I'm kind of burnt out and I might just wait till 3:15. And I'm like, I'm having the most fun I've ever had. Like, just because it's just an ongoing theme. Like, I've never, even in Ritual, I've never been like, I'm not having the most fun I've ever had in PoE, because there's just always more stuff to do now because they keep adding more stuff. And I don't know. I don't know if it's like a viewpoint. I don't know if it's just a personality disorder. Like, I don't really burn out. But that's why I don't do things that I don't like. Like, I hate the learning curve of stuff. So that's why I stick with the game. That's why I stick with, basketball, drumming, whatever it is that I like find that I can get good at.
So it's drums is your instrument. All right.
That's how you take out your aggression. That's why I don't burn out. I hit things like at least once a week. Yeah.
So do you actually go from league launch to patch notes playing PoE the whole time?
I would say like
typically
probably 2/3 of the leagues I do. And it's as the guide has gotten bigger and bigger that the amount that I like retain into the league has gone up exponentially. So at this point, it's like, yeah, I don't really stop playing. Like the week or two that I spent on last Epoch was the longest I've gone without doing any content or playing in like probably 3 leagues now. So yeah, I don't always get into the same stuff. Like I played the entire Heist League and never did any of the unique contracts because I was focused on guide updates for like a solid 2 months and things like that. So I don't always do the league content start to finish, but yeah, it's generally play start to finish.
But you're in without the burnout.
Yeah.
Now you mentioned you did Badgers event. You do other events as well? You like do you like racing, or is it just private leagues, or you wish there was more?
Yeah, the first time that most this is really embarrassing, but I'm going to go with it cuz it's great. I've come to love it. So the first time that most people like saw my face on any type of like PoE media was the very first. I don't know. Do you know if I say the camel races? Do you know what I'm talking about?
We've had this conversation.
This
is going back to the very first time we heard about the camel race. Now, we both did not know that BK was referencing an individual.
Yep.
We were both trying to figure out how a camel has anything to do with the race. Now, we do, since then, fully understand what the camel races are.
We were too, I don't know if it was proud or what, but it took us about 20 episodes to ask her what she was actually talking about.
I think he's leaned into that fully because his Discord server image is a camel. So yeah, I think he's leaned into that. But yeah, so he basically, I heard of that first time they were going to start organizing those community races. I heard about it through Brittle Knee and through, so I went into Camel's stream and I was watching him, and then they kind of came out with the rules. Like, if you want to race, this is what you have to do. And I was like, okay, I'm not fast. Like I'm pretty fast just from a like experience point of view, but I'm not really fast. I'm not racer fast. But they said, if you can get one of the racers to vouch for you, you can get in. And I was like, oh, well, I know some of the racers. And so I went over to Somad's stream and I was like, hey, are you racing? And he was like, yeah. And I said, any chance you'd vouch for me so I could race? And he goes, yeah, absolutely. I'll vouch for you. And he went right in and vouched for me. And they were like, oh, okay, so you're in. And I'm sitting here like, that was when Ty 23 was still racing and he had all the world records. Dead and Doom was racing and Tai had just started. And so the race starts and I'm like, people are killing Katava and I'm in like starting Act 7. And I'm like, I'm doing real good. And, but that was the race that they added. I think the very first race they had I think they had damage mods on it and a couple. So it was really, really rippy and everyone was pushing each other. So as I'm playing, I'm way behind. But people are starting to die, and I'm moving up spots just because people are dying, and I'm passing them slowly. And so I make it to Katava in Act 10. I'm like 6.5 hours, right? It's like, I try to always remember this. This is, again, the thing that like I'm always keeping in mind because of the new player thing. that's really, really fast compared to like 95% of people. But when you're racing against 100 other people that are the fastest 100 in the game, it's 101st place. So I make it to Catawba, 6.5 hours in. I don't have my contacts in anymore. I've got glasses on. I'm exhausted. I had worked a full day. Everyone else had been like racing that morning to prep. I had worked a full day. I raced and I had a moment of panic, and Catawba like does his little area flame breath thing. And I know that there's a spot to stand on where it looks like it would hit me, but it won't. And I panic and I'm like, it's going to hit me. So I start flame dashing around the arena like a crazy person, and I die in just the most embarrassing death of all time. I tried to hit my logout macro and I hit the F key right next to it like 12 times. So all you see as I'm dying is a pop-up on the window going, 50 monsters remaining, like endlessly, because I'm just trying to log out. And I'm just like slouched in my chair. And so of course the rip clip goes up and it gets shared around thousands of times. And I was like, okay, so maybe racing is not for me.
No, my forte.
But like community events are definitely for me.
6.5 hours is like 8 times faster than me.
Well,
and I'm fast.
One of those statements is true. But yeah, I've discovered a big passion for things like Badgers events, again, where it's like community focused. There's so much like new player focused stuff in there where people are just, the teams get divided up and they go, okay, if you're a new player and you need help, ask this person, do this, post this here. And just that general atmosphere of like everyone sharing the loot, helping new players is just awesome. Like I love those.
All right. So looking back at since you started playing, I feel like I want to take Synthesis out because that's almost too obvious. But what was your favorite and least favorite league? Because I feel like we already know Synthesis probably is up there as your least.
It's up there. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Maybe something that's close to it. Maybe, yeah. Something other than Synthesis as your worst, and then whatever the best.
You're not allowed to have the favorite.
Yeah.
Or the worst that you've already said.
Nah, it's too easy.
I had, and this again is like, it's performance based, but I had so many issues with Delirium. I really liked, I found myself so conflicted during Delirium because I loved how difficult it was, but I felt like that difficulty was artificial because I couldn't see anything at all. It was the grayest gray of all. It felt like I set a Word document to have like a black background and black text, and I was just trying to figure out what I was typing. Like I couldn't see anything, and the performance was so bad. It was like the moments of clarity you got, you would just be dropping to 5-6 FPS. That was the even worse performance overall than Ritual League for me. So I had that combination of couldn't see anything, couldn't click anything, and Delirium was really rough. And it made me more sad because I really liked what it was as a league. I really liked how difficult it was, how you could see the rewards stacking up so you knew like, is this going to be worth it or not? And maybe I'll just cancel it. I really like the Simulacrum is still awesome. I love that. I love going into, I think it's the coolest like repurposing of areas and things in the game because you're in the towns fighting. Like nothing else in the game makes you feel like as immersed to me as a Simulacrum. I don't know.
That's a good point.
I really like Simulacrums. So the league made it hurt even worse when I just couldn't play it. And best by a mile. Okay, this isn't a league, so bear with me. The Endless Delve event is the single greatest week that there's ever been in a video game. Delve is my favorite thing in the whole game. It was my favorite league. It's always been my favorite thing, and I don't even do it that much. The deepest I've ever been is like 1500. It's always with Vortex. Like I don't play deep delve builds.
That's it.
Well,
man,
okay.
no, that's so. Okay. Oh no, you're worried about it.
So I really like delve.
Hang on.
Yeah.
Justin, what's your deepest?
Like 7,000 easy.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Come on.
me too.
Maybe 300, 300 or 400.
So you're in good company.
Okay,
let's
fair
just
enough.
say that 1500's fantastic.
Fair enough.
Go ahead.
So
Go ahead. Sorry,
I just
interrupted.
loved the whole time you're playing Delve League. The only feedback we had that was even remotely negative was why is there a cap on how often we can do this? And the Endless Delve, and I get why there's like a cap in the main game, but the Endless Delve event was not only was there no cap, but it was like the purest form of like a throwback to trading and crafting because you couldn't leave. I don't know if you guys played that event at all.
Yep.
You couldn't leave. So there was no like shenanigans with beast crafting. There wasn't even your own crafting bench. It felt like we were playing a super polished like 1.0 version, but also getting to do all the delve stuff. So like that to me was the most fun, pure Path of Exile playing ever. I think everyone did more. If you played there, you were just doing more playing than normal because you weren't spending all the time that a lot of players would spend in their hideouts. It was the best. I miss it all the time.
Uber Lab was the best part. It was amazing.
Yep. Getting your ascendancies through Delve Depth was like mind blowing.
I concur. Good answers. How about getting into some wishes? What are some of the things you wished were in the game or suggestions you might have? Any, gems you wish showed up as maybe a quest reward or something?
Okay. I'm putting this out to Bex and Chris Wilson because I've been asking for it for years. Some of my highest upvoted posts ever on Reddit are asking for this. I have one wish, and it's so stinking simple. I just want the witch to be offered Vortex for free as a quest reward. You have to pay for Vortex still. When you kill Gravicius, right? I think that's how you pronounce it. I'm so bad at the pronunciation.
The level 28 optional boss.
I just learned like 3 days or like maybe a week ago that Tane is actually Tane. Like I'm bad at all that. So
what?
Yeah. Yes.
Tane?
Yes. I spent an entire stream doing investigative work on that.
Huh.
So yeah. So when you kill Gravicius, that's when you unlock the like ability to buy Vortex. But when you come back and you get offered like that reward where there's literally 15 I think it's the single most gems you're ever offered at one point for a quest reward. Vortex is not in there as a witch.
Huh.
You have to go
what
spend
do you
a chance
normally
orb.
take?
Normally I take like some inspectors and I'll just level it because it's easy to sell for a few chaos. But there's nothing in there that's valuable for the build either. It's just you have to spend a chance orb, and sometimes it's really hard to get a chance orb that early.
Yeah.
And the other issue is, so it gets even worse because your best support for, well, one of your best supports is hypothermia, which you have to go do the library quest for, and then spend two more chances for because you need one for Vortex and Cold Snap, and you have to spend chances on like things like Second Wind, like basically all the good 28 and 31 support gems cost chance orbs, and you also have to spend one on Vortex, and it's freaking rough.
Is Vortex offered for any of the classes?
Nope. It's a buy only gem. It makes no sense. Every single league, I got to the point of this league where I was posting like the Bernie Sanders meme where I was like, I am once again asking for the witch to give Vortex as a quest reward. It's just, so that's like my actual wish to go in the game is I just want that
is such
one
a
little
simple
change.
wish.
It's so
such
small.
a simple wish.
It's so small. I had like my breakout moment a couple weeks ago when Bex followed me on Twitter, so I think I'm going to get it done now. I think I gotta.
Nice.
You made it.
I did, exactly.
You made it.
So now she made the mistake of giving me that direct line. So
Yeah, you can hit that little message.
This is on her now. Yeah,
that's right. You have a weekly reminder.
Exactly.
That's awesome.
Pumping out the same message. That's crazy.
Other than that, like on a more general game-wide thing that's not very selfish, just like any integration of that third-party stuff, really. Like we were talking about. I had this talk with, I can't remember who it was. I was sitting in a stream earlier. I think it was Catmaster. We were talking about ways to get like better crafting so you don't accidentally roll over something. Like if you're crafting in the way that 6 links stop when you hit a 6 link, Tyler, that's like when you use orbs of like fusings, you would like if you get 6 links, it'll stop rolling. I'm sure
that's amazing.
Okay, go on.
Okay, so
wait, you're telling me it keeps going after 4?
6 link?
Yeah. So if you hit a 6 link, right, it stops. And what would be amazing would be like if I'm gonna roll, let's say a wand, right, and I want to alt spam a wand until I hit cold damage over time multiplier. Why can't there be in my crafting bench a drop down where it says what mod are you looking for, and I select cold dot multi, and I can just spam click away. It doesn't reduce like that whole joke about weight. It doesn't reduce any of the weight because I still have to click. But when it hits that mod, it stops rolling. That way I can't accidentally roll over it. And that lets you, you're still clicking the same amount of times, but it's just that those little tiny bits of quality of life that would make people just lose their minds. I would love that. So
yeah, that would be awesome.
A lot of clicking. Yeah.
That's one of those ones where I'm like, I'm not even asking to reduce the clicking. I'm just asking to reduce the chance that I'm going to click 1,000
over
times
something
and then click over it. Yeah.
Yep. Oh, that would be awesome. Just briefly want to talk a little bit about 3.14, just your overall thoughts on it. We'll probably talk about it more in After Dark, but what are your thoughts sort of on the league and then the core changes for 3.14?
So because of the new player focus that I have like constantly, I really enjoy watching videos of like the super like zoom farming crazy delirious stuff, like all the YouTubers that do like the insane farming. I think it makes it more enjoyable for me to watch because that's not my focus. And so I also get a weird enjoyment out of seeing people complain that they've like there's not enough there's so much stuff in the end game. And so like when I see people that are like, oh, well, ultimatums kind of cap out, and I'm only, the most you can expect to make in an ultimatum if you invest high is like 25 50C a map, and I'm like, this is not enough. And I'm like, okay, calm down. I really enjoy the ultimatums. I joke a lot that I don't even mind the stone circles just because it riles people up. But like I'm moving anyway in Vortex. Like if you stop moving, you're dead. So just because that's, you're playing in melee range. So I really enjoy being able to see what's coming up, make an informed decision, and then live with my actions if I die. Like that's what I really enjoyed about Heist, except for like the random like doors opening one shots. That's one thing I really liked about Heist, and to a certain extent about Ritual, was like the idea of choice and like pushing a little bit further for a little bit better rewards. So the idea is really appealing, and I know that some people are still having like performance issues, and I really empathize with them because it fixed a lot of the Ritual issues for me. So I've been having an absolute blast. I really just have had a lot of fun, and I will say that I'm not the fastest mapper in the world. Like I'm not super efficient. A lot of that is because I spend time talking to people a lot on stream. I'm much more efficient when the camera's off. But the spawn rate of the Trial Master is, for me, almost dead exactly 1 in every 50 like tier 14s, and like 1 in every 100 like, what is it, 11 to 13s. The spawn rate is almost dead on, but I do wish that there was a way to, like, I think, I posted a response in the last I put this on Twitter after you guys' last episode. I said I had some thoughts on just a small way to make the Trial Master fight better. Like if you complete an ultimatum, if you just get through however many waves he offers, wouldn't it be nice if he like dropped like a ticket or like some sort of like thing where if you complete the ultimatum, you get a ticket, and it costs, let's say it costs 100 tickets to fight him. So in a tier 14 through 16, he'll drop you 2 tickets if you complete the ultimatum. And in an 11 through 13, he'll drop you 1 ticket. So you're never going to run into that issue where you're asking for them to stack because you're only dropping 1 or 2 at a time. But if you want to go out and if you want to just farm a bunch of Trial Master fights, you can go out and buy tickets from other players that aren't going to use them. Because there's plenty of people that click decline every time they'll see him because their build can't handle it or they don't want to pass up on their rewards. And that way it lets you have, you're making progress toward the fight. Like you get that little bit of satisfaction of like, I'm a 50th of the way there. And at the same time, if I got 40 out of 50, if I get to the end of a stream one night and I'm at 45 out of 50 tickets, I just go buy 5 tickets and end the stream with a Trial Master. I don't really see how that could possibly be bad. I don't know. There's definitely a way it could probably be abused and be bad, but
I don't like any boss based on RNG.
Exactly.
I just don't. Not a fan.
Yep.
And they just added splinters for a different boss. Who did they just add splinters for? Harvest.
Yep,
right.
Right?
Yep.
People were really excited about that. And then they go the opposite direction for 314.
Yeah. I just don't know why. Like, I know this isn't the feeling, but what it feels like is you don't want people to see your new endgame. Like if I was going to make a boss, I'd be like, I want people fighting him like every 20 minutes, which I get, you know, I just, that part is strange to me, but I hesitate because I'm not, I've helped develop a board game before. I know what goes into development, and there's so many issues that you don't think of until it's like shipped and out the door. And so I try to be really, really hesitant, particularly anytime, I'm like live on stream or maybe like recording a podcast. I try to be very careful about what I say that could be construed as like harsh criticism when it's really not. It's just, hey, here's an idea I had that might make it a little bit smoother.
What do you think of the core changes they did with 314 with regards to all the league stuff and making the items more specific to them?
I think there's a clip out there somewhere of me freaking out in happiness when I read that. Just the idea of like, it should always be, it makes sense. It should always be the best way to get something is to run the content that it came from. Like that's such a basic idea. It shouldn't almost not need to be said, but I can also understand how in 14 patches just since 3.0 released, it's so easy to get away from it. So to see them like make a conscious like, oh, we recognize this that, the best way to get almost anything is to do not the content that it comes from. And so to push back and try to make that, to try to correct that, I think is a really, really good move. And I really like that. It's had varying degrees of success, but I really like the fact that they said it, put it in the patch notes, they made a change for it, shows like a lot of, I really like the fact that they acknowledged it.
How about in general, like where PoE is at? Obviously, if I asked you last league, it wouldn't have been a very positive comment, but they seem to have redeemed themselves in your eyes with 3.14 in a lot of different ways. Are you happy with where PoE is at, or are you okay with the product you've been given if you were to start off today, I guess?
I struggle with that question a lot. Yeah, overall, like I love the game. And it's weird because I think that sometimes loving something too much is like, that you overlook some flaws, which that's the thing. They've built up so much goodwill over the last 7-8 years of my life that I'm willing to give them so much more slack than I would give something like Last Epoch. So, if Wolcens's a great example. We were hyped for Wolcen to come out. I was like, we got all the guys that had fallen off of playing PoE, all those friends from that I play games with. We all got in. We were going to play together. We were going to, we made all these plans. And then the game was down for like 40 hours on the launch weekend. I uninstalled it during the time it was down, and I've never reinstalled it because they didn't have anything built up there for me to be like, well, I'll give you another chance. Whereas, 3.14 launch happened, and 12 hours later, I was like, well, I hope they fix it because I really, really want to play. So they've built up that goodwill. So some of that stuff is like, it feels like it's like a family member. You're like, I'll give you a pass, but maybe try to learn from your mistakes. But I like overall, I like where it is in terms of there's so many options. There's so much to do. I know people were upset with nerfs and stuff, but I'm on the opposite end. I not full opposite, but I think that curtailing power creep is never going to be popular because you're always curtailing someone else's builds and stuff. But it's so important for the health of the game long term. And I get that sometimes you just got to bite the bullet and be like, we have a lot of things that need to change. Let's get them all done now. And, it's not like they were not expecting people to be, have criticism of it. So I think the game's in a decent state right now. I think it's in a bit of a holding pattern because so much is being put into PoE 2. It's not it's an unavoidable problem. Like, do you want to release PoE 2 or not? And they've clearly chosen yes, which is that's the call to make. But it means that there's less resources overall for, PoE 1 right now. So it is what it is. There's definitely things that I'd like to think if I was like in charge, I would want to change. But again, if I was in charge, PoE would not be anywhere near what it is right now. So it's that thing you try to keep in mind, right?
I was going to ask you if there were any old builds you miss or can't play anymore, but I think this is just where we throw in like Tornado Shot and then that any others?
I got one better. So here's the thing with Tornado Shot. Like, I made the guide for it because I enjoyed it. Even my enjoyment of it fell off really quickly because I realized this through Vortex. One of the things that maybe I should have put this in the beginning in my little Vortex pitch. I really, really dislike having to do anything related to like weapon swapping for bosses, gem swapping, anything that like is just super, super, super fast, but then can't deal with single target. I'm not a fan of that. It really frustrates me after a while. And the old Tornado Shot was a lot like that, and that got really old really fast. But my true love in PoE, but my all-time favorite thing that I've ever done was back before they even had Act 4 through 10. There was a time, it's legend at this point. There was a time at which Vol skills had no cooldown, and they could essentially recharge themselves with the kills that they got from using the Vol skill. So there was about a 6-month period where I spent the majority of my PoE time going into Dried Lake in Merciless and running Vol Spark. And it was the most fun I've ever had in a video game because you would have to kill like the first 2 packs with a regular Spark, and you would be using Call of the Brotherhoods to convert your lightning damage to cold and shatter everything. And as soon as your Vol Spark filled up for the first time, it was literally you felt like you were playing a controlled flicker strike. You would hit Vol Spark, the spiders would come out in the hundreds. They would go all over the map. They would shatter everything, and they would refill Vol Spark with their own kills. It was the dumbest thing I've ever played. You could clear a Merciless Lake, Dried Lake in about 25 seconds, and it was ludicrous.
Used to be awesome for Magic finding in there.
It was very, very broken, very dumb, but that's the most fun I've ever had.
All right, so 314, we're like maybe halfway-ish. Any thoughts? It's pretty hard, but any thoughts for 315 or what you'd like to see or where you want them to hopefully go?
This is like similar to how I feel about league starts in general, where I just feel like I never have enough time. Anytime people start talking about the next league, I'm always like, you sure you don't want to like maybe test out another month or two, like push it out a little? I got so much stuff to do. I have this constantly. I had to actually make a legitimate to-do list in Google Drive because just so much stuff going on, which is good. I'm nowhere near getting like, editors for myself or anything like that. So it's all manual processes. So I'm always excited for what's going to come out. I get as hyped as anyone else when I see like the launches and the announcements. I really miss already. It's only been like 2 leagues. I really, really miss like Beck's spoiler season. That was something that the group of us friends. So that was the one part of PoE that all of our friends that have like fallen off would get back into. They didn't care about the actual league. They would lose their minds about Beck's spoilers. We would have a daily, like anytime she tweeted for like a month before the new league, anytime she tweeted, we'd be posting it in the Hangouts chat. We'd be analyzing it. We'd have that, that whole list of like metal band names that they were talking about where they'd pull the league off the list of names. We had an ongoing updated sheet with the names that they had used crossed out. We were like, and at one point we made a Reddit post that was like, it was a joking post about how we had figured out the name of, I think it ended up being Delirium, but we just came up with the most ludicrous conspiracy theory ever about finding out the name of the league. And it was really cool because at that point, none of us had ever interacted with Bex like for real. And so she was, doing her thing that she does on Reddit where she has like an endless supply of gifts. And she had commented the whole thing. It was like, someone sneaking into the bushes and someone like Homer backing away and all those like sneaking away gifts. And we were obviously wrong because we made it as a joke. And I feel like that was the spiritual like predecessor to Badger's PI videos that he put out. And it was just, we love that. And that's the one thing I really, really miss in the lead up to a new league.
And then what about PoE 2? Like, is PoE 2 something that you're excited for? Just sitting around waiting for? Do you care? Like, where are you at with PoE 2?
I'm terrified of it. I'm picturing from a build guide writer's perspective. Like what I'm remembering is every time someone says PoE 2, what I think of is the stress that I went through when they introduced cluster jewels. And it almost made me, I almost, with cluster jewels, I almost stopped updating the guide. I was like, this is the end. Like it can't be done now. There's no way to do it. I had the cluster jewel. So Delirium League was the first league I've ever not had a guide update ready at launch time. It was just impossible. And now I'm looking at how much is going to be just new and changed in PoE 2. And again, it's a weird position to be because I'm excited for the game. I'm excited for all the new players that are going to come in and play it. But I'm terrified for trying to do content and guides, like specifically. It's a scary thing. I'm really excited for it. And I'm hoping that, I don't know if I want to try to just be like everyone that still plays PoE 1, just check out this guide and maybe stick with PoE 1 type stuff. Or I'm sure I'm not. I'm sure I'm going to go and hop in and try to make the first popular crossbow build or whatever those two is, spears and was it crossbows? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure I'm going to be trying out, I'm going to try to be the guy that's making, cold dot crossbows or something stupid, but I'm excited for it.
So you told us you were on another podcast. It's coming out, I think, the same day. What was that one? Do you want to?
Sure. Yeah. So that was like, it was actually, I think it was like an hour on stream before you mentioned being on this one too. So that was a weird day, but
nice.
Yeah, it was. So that was we recorded on Monday and I think it's coming out basically the same time this one is. It's the Gamerhood podcast. So it's not PoE specific, but I think in maybe 15 episodes or so, I think I'm the second PoE person specifically he's had on, but it's basically a podcast focused on dads who game or stream, or like basically dads who do any type of video game content or game. So yeah, that was pretty fun. It was a lot more focused on like fatherhood in general, like, what tips for other people trying to find time to play if they're dads, like how do you work it into your your everyday life? What does life look like in the average day? So it was a lot of fun.
And what's it called?
The Gamerhood podcast.
Sweet. And where else can people find you?
Oh man, I got to hold it. The best place that I've gone to now is the Discord. That's the biggest one. Like, we have a borderline unmanageable amount of people now, but in a good way. We're at it's like 2,500 people in there now. I actually put an application up for a new role called helper in there, because right now the ratio of members to mods is like 600 or 700 to 1. Like, it's absurd. So I've had to add so many things. Just this league, that's what I've spent days and days doing, is just updating Discord to be usable. So we've added roles and all that stuff. But anyway, the point being, Discord is the best place. There's so many people in there, so many helpful people. There's links to it in the guide. There's links to it in the Twitch chat commands and all that. On Twitch, like I said, everywhere. The reason I picked my name is because you can, if you just Google ShakCentral on Google it or search for it on any platform, I'm going to be the person that shows up. So I literally have a Facebook group. I've got a Twitter page. I've got, we got the guide itself, which I believe is the first result that pops up if you Google ShakCentral. I hope at this point it is. And
I thought it was Shaker Central.
Oh my gosh. Shouldn't have said anything. But yeah, that's really I'm ShakCentral literally everywhere. I think Instagram is the only thing I haven't gotten into because I don't see a reason for that. But ShakCentral's Vortex for everyone is I've heard that's the place to be.
We'll have the links down below too for everybody.
Oh, thank you. I will say I've been pushing a lot of people on the build subreddit over to this Record of Days guys builds. They're pretty good.
It's going two ways. I was actually going to ask because I had a Vortex CI build for a while too, but I like yours. I think I'm just gonna, if you're all right with it, just link your build in my guides. If you're all right with that.
I actually was so you are now officially mentioned in my guide as well, because I just updated this week. There's now we had actually almost a bit of fighting I had to solve in the Discord, because we're now at the point where there's different people playing like different variants of the build and kind of arguing which ones are better. So that's been a weird thing to kind of manage. But what it's led to is now when you go low life, I've listed like 4 different total ways to set up your like links. And one of them is completely automated. I think I called it the what did I call it? Like the wrist brace version. And I just mentioned that you should play this if you're a fan of Record of Days, but it's basically, instead of self-casting like the Hex Touch curses, it's like putting it all in a blasphemy setup and then using a trigger wand to get all of your stuff out. So
fun. That's cool. No, but we'll talk about Lincoln. I think it'd be awesome.
Oh yeah,
have your CI guide in there.
That'd be cool.
So last question for you. You probably already have quite a few Path of Exile tattoos, right? Yeah.
That's not even a joke. I've had this discussion with my wife. I don't think she's very happy about these discussions. I've got ones. Actually, I'm getting a drum at the end of this month, and then I'm setting my sights on maybe a little Kataba X or something. You know.
Oh, I was gonna ask what it was gonna be, and you already know.
So my original idea was like, there's like a semi-popular picture that goes around of just a really again, I try to be very measured when I'm like being recorded or anywhere, but a very interestingly done Kataba back piece. And that kind of gave me a little pause, but I've seen some really cool stuff. And especially with what you can, like, I gave a lot of thought to just getting the image of the Shaper MTX Vortex somewhere, because it's basically that like celestial circle with a hole right in the middle of it. I think it looks incredible. And that would make for a pretty stinking sweet tattoo. So I'm getting a drum on my forearm, and I thought about, like maybe up on like around a shoulder, somewhere that like goes good with a little circle effect. I think that would be pretty sweet for it. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, we'll see.
Did you ever check out the black hole effect? Remember before Celestial existed, it was black hole for Vortex?
Yeah.
Did you ever check that out?
I don't think I have that one. I went right to, I never got that because I actually kind of like the original. I'm actually back to using the original in game because it's just a lot more visually clear. Especially in ultimatums. I did the Shaper MTX for one ultimatum and immediately switched off it. I just couldn't see a single thing. So, unfortunately, I still do the grasping hand cold snap. That is the best MTX in all of PoE. But other than that, I got to go with the original because it's a little more clear.
Nice.
That's awesome. Well, hey man, thanks a lot for joining us today. Do you want to join us in After Dark after this?
I am in 100%.
Sweet. Thank you so much for joining us. It's awesome. We will have Shak's information down below, so you can find out his Twitch, his Twitter, his Discord, everything. Any link Tyler can find It's going to be down there. Thank you guys so much for joining us for episode 83 of Forever Exiled.
I didn't want to be the
Path of
guest to
Exile
like tell you what episode it was on your own podcast.
Yeah, sorry.
I was just waiting.
I was like, wait a minute, what was it again? I appreciate it though. Anyway, thank you guys so much for joining us. You Patrons, you can catch us in After Dark. Everybody else will be in episode 84 next week. I am Justin, aka Tags.
Tyler, Wrecker of Days.
And a special guest,
ShakCentral. Thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate it.
Yeah, that's
Our
awesome.
pleasure.
Thanks again, buddy. You can find out more information down below. Website, foreverexiled.com. We are on Twitter, foreverexiled82. We've got a Discord. You can find the link down below, as well as any of the information to our Patreon. Peace.
You're getting really good at that.
I practice
Very
like
solid.
once a week.
Yeah. You practice once a week.
1, 2, 3. What changed? We didn't change anything.